everyone. I'm delighted to bring you today a very different industry, cosmetics. And we will talk about how L'Oreal, the world's largest cosmetics company, is being limitless. But before I take you there, let me give you a little background. L'Oreal was founded by a French chemist named Eugene Paul Louis Schuller when he launched the first hair dye in 1909. 110 years later, by 2019, the company had clocked up a turnover of 30 billion euros. Across 36 brands, some of which are L'Oreal, Garnier, Maybelline, Yves Saint Laurent, Urban Decay, and many more, across 150 countries. Monsieur Schuller's granddaughter, Françoise Bettencourt-Maillet, is now the vice chair of the board. The company believes beauty is not skin deep and actually builds a person's self-confidence and a person's sense of belonging. And with that, I have great pleasure in welcoming Gaurav Anand, the Chief Digital and Marketing Officer for L'Oreal India, who will talk to us today about L'Oreal's strategy. Gaurav, welcome to the program.
Hello, Sangeeta. Very, very happy to be on the program with you.
Wonderful. And Gaurav, what an amazing trajectory you've had. We were talking about it the other day. You started with P&G London, then you did the SK2, a Japanese cosmetic brand, part of the P&G portfolio in Singapore, then on to Facebook for 4 to 5 years across 2 countries, then managed a large portfolio of Pepsi Snacks Europe across 26 countries, and now L'Oreal. And you seem to have moved effortlessly between FMCG and beauty, between brick and mortar and e-com. And it would be just wonderful for our listeners and viewers to see what is your perspective on that.
Definitely, Sangeeta. I think I've been following the journey of the consumers and have had the unique chance to be close to tech products to see how tech products can improve the lives of our consumers. And being a very hardcore brander at heart, that's where I started with. My job is to make sure we bring in the best tech tools to improve the consumer's life.
Right. And you mentioned a very interesting example when you were telling me about your journey, which was the launch of the SK2 brand in US and UK and Australia. And, how you were you had to leverage technology. You want to mention a little bit to us about that? Definitely.
It was a bit of our relaunch into some of the Western markets. And one of the key challenge we were looking at is how do you make sure you do it in a profitable and low investment method to bring this East brand into the Western consumers.
Very difficult job, huh?
It is, and very exciting nonetheless, because usually the wave is other way around. You were trying to bring West brands into East, so it was a very exciting opportunity. And we leveraged a lot because the brief was very simple, low cost and profitable. Digital was the key answer. So for example, we thought about going in SK2.com in US so that we could actually leverage more cities within US instead of just opening up our stores. And today it is one of the key pillars of SK2 business in US.
And I think you mentioned you leveraged 2 or 3 things for the SK2 launch, and one was definitely technology. So I think the intersection points of media, technology, the consumer, at a time when really, this was 2012, 13, you mentioned, something like that?
Yeah, this was, it was actually the transition when we started using e-commerce as a way to do the market entry was around 2012, 13. And then we leveraged this also for the digital transformation of the brand, which is now seen as a digital first brand within P&G. And there were 3 pillars, as you rightly said. We looked across our content, our media, and data in the interest of consumer experience.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. And just maybe a couple of words on the Facebook experience. That's, again, unusual, right? To move from Facebook back into, you went full sync into Pepsi, Europe with 26 countries, the whole snack portfolio. That's unusual. That's an unusual move.
No, you're right. When I moved with Procter & Gamble, to Facebook, I was open to the possibilities of how tech can help consumers understand
Okay.
consumers and
Mhm.
also give them better experience. And that was very, very exciting. So when I did get an opportunity to use digital for business growth and profitable business growth and to give exciting opportunities to our consumers, I love that. And I was back into FMCG to drive that business. The common thread across my journey has been understanding of the consumer and how do you service them better.
That's the ultimate truth of all business, right? Whatever you might say.
And I've been always been discussing and tech and consumer. And my understanding is one of the best tech is the tech that is invisible in the interest of human relationships.
Interesting.
Um, and like you make a call to me, like we are together talking, right? You don't know the entire intricacies of what is going on between in the tech, but we are able to communicate very candidly. And
Right.
that is what I love about it. How do we make sure the tech is so good? And the tech needs to be bloody good to make sure
Yeah.
that it becomes invisible in human relationships.
Yeah.
And that's what we are trying to create at L'Oreal as well. How do we use tech to make sure our consumers are served better?
Wonderful. So just before you get to the strategy of L'Oreal, I wanted to spend a minute on, what your role is in L'Oreal, because your profile is an unusual one where strategy is mentioned as part of your remit. So could you just mention your remit to us, please?
Definitely. So what I look after is how do we make sure we serve our consumers better? The role is called Chief Digital and Marketing Officer, and the idea is to bring digital and marketing together in the interest of seamless consumer experience.
Right.
It covers insights, it covers media, it covers data, and the strategy part, so that we are accelerating our online commerce and acquiring consumers fast.
Wonderful, wonderful. Should we now go to the strategy of L'Oreal India?
Definitely. So the key focus for us, we are still a relatively young FMCG company with 25 years presence in India. The focus for us, the North Star remains acquiring consumers. So penetration is the key goal across the organization. To enable this, there are two areas that we are working towards and trying to be famous at. One is creating the best consumer experiences that can connect to commerce. And what I mean by that is making sure every time a consumer interacts with our brands and our products and connects to a purchase, we are giving them the best possible experience. This ranges from having the best presence in social commerce, working with our partners to making sure that we have enabling services like consultative selling, and also the right way of doing curated sampling to give a delight to our consumers. We are focusing extensively on this consumer experience to commerce bit because we see that is going to be the future. More and more consumers are looking forward to more rewarding experiences. And they're quite keen to even share their data in anticipation of future rewarding consumer experiences.
Yeah, I found that quite interesting. You mentioned that make the experience so good and so seamless that the consumer is willing to come back for more and therefore wants to share their data. I thought that was a very new way of looking at it. So thank you
Definitely.
for that. Yeah.
And the second thing we want to be very famous for is our ability to acquire consumers as the best possible CAC. To do this, we need to make sure that our advertising is tailored to the consumers who want to be seeing our advertising. So we are very choiceful in our audience design. And how do we use data to make sure our audience design is in line with our strategy? And when we juxtapose that with the great content that L'Oreal is reputed to be creating in the world of beauty, that gives us an immense arsenal on great ROI on our media services. So those are the two big things that we want to be driving at. And the enabler of all this remains our core insight team. We can't create great consumer experiences without good insights on our consumers. And we will not be able to serve our ads at the most cost optimal way if we don't have analytics. So our insight team remains the big enabler for both the areas that we want to be driving fast on.
Right. And so that also speaks to analytical tools, that also speaks to, I think you mentioned something about, I mean, you mentioned a very interesting thing. You said consumer design. And you obviously you mean consumer cohort design, and that's something that I'm sure a lot of people will want to know more about. So could you spend a minute or two on that, please?
No, definitely. So there is a contrast in the worlds of marketing when you look at FMCG worlds and startups. The startups today are looking at data. They are creating some of their consumer profiles with their seed data and using machine learning to find audiences like that. I'm a big proponent of that belief. I think the best way to find your future audiences is to look into your current audiences. And the other extreme of that is also the age-old traditional way of defining your audience as the 25 to 45s, females, and looking for them. That's just a bit of an expensive way of finding your audience. It's a bit of a spray and pray strategy. And I'm working on how do we make sure that we evolve on more deterministic signals on finding our audiences and using consumer data enabled with machine learning to find future potential buyers for our brands.
Could you give us any example at all across all the cohorts and all the complexity in your business?
So for example, let me pick two. For example, we have a strong social commerce business from which we have a very high quality seed audience of consumers who have purchased us, and we also know what kind of product they are purchasing.
Right.
We can use that as a seed audience to create more future potential buyers of this. So for example, with a very small seed audience, we can create a multiple of 30x when we are looking to the designing the audience, especially when we are looking to some of the premium brands. This is very, very helpful because for finding the right consumers from a premium brand is looking for a needle in a haystack. So using machine learning to 30x your existing buyers and finding potential buyers from that is very, very helpful on our ROI.
That's fantastic.
The second example also is with our e-com partners. We are working with some of our e-com partners on saying a sampling is a great journey for consumer to get to know beauty. Some of our partners who play into multiple categories, there's also an opportunity into targeting some of their consumers who are not currently purchasing beauty with the right incentive. And that cohort is very valuable if we have the right messaging and the right sampling opportunity with them. But once we do that, we need to track their entire trajectory on post taking the sampling, how much of them we're able to convert. So having the right cohort to do this is very, very helpful because if you do it too broadly, it is not going to pay off.
Sure, sure. But would these e-commerce partner platforms allow data? Like normally they would allow obviously a sampling data, but they would not allow customer data, isn't it?
So it is not about owning the consumer data. It is more about partnership and finding the cohorts together and doing co-marketing so that you can track that.
Right, understand. So Gaurav, it's just astounding, and it was a question in my head. Across your categories and the fact that in India you have 16 brands, which you call 16 franchises. How do you segment, market, and manage such a large portfolio of business?
The way we look at it, we have our brands and we have our categories. We look into our matrix of brand and categories when we're looking into our businesses.
You want to just mention the categories for our
definitely.
listeners?
If you look into our bigger consumer product division, we talk about three key brands, Garnier, L'Oreal Paris. And when we look into the categories, we look into hair care, we look into skin, we also look into makeup. So across Garnier, Maybelline, and L'Oreal Paris, and these categories, we map out our product portfolio and make sure that we have the right products and propositions for consumers across the cohorts. When we look into makeup, we further look to break it down into lips, face, and eyes. For example, during the Corona times, when people were wearing a lot of masks, we saw a lot of traction coming towards the eyes.
Right.
And it was very, very interesting on how some of these categories and brand combinations grow.
Were there any insights from that period in terms of, new trends that you noticed with the consumer?
Well, in skin, we are seeing a lot of traction coming for instant gratification, and that's where masks are really picking up in a big way. The overall awareness of serums in skin is on a rise. And when I especially contrast this to some of the markets which is much more developed in serums, such as the Southeast Asia or China, there is a lot of headroom where we are seeing a pickup.
Right.
Skin is very, very interesting. I've seen this across Southeast Asia in markets where even a men has a 9-step regimen. So I think there is an evolution on the skincare regimen for Indians. There is a lot of massive headroom on that growth, and now those are coming together in terms of the basic regimen and also the evolution of regimens into serums, which is very interesting to see.
Right, and a country which has a lot of dust, dirt, very variant weather, places very hot and dry, places very, very wet and salty. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, right, for that market.
No, definitely. And I think now the basic regimen of cleansing, toning, and moisturizing have been established. It's also pre and post moisturization care. Those regimens will also be evolving very fast. So it's a very, very interesting space for us to keep an eye on, and not just in women, but also in men. Then the need for personalization is very high. Consumers are very, very aware of the kind of skin or the hair type they have, and are looking for more personalized and customized solutions for their needs.
Right. So if there were 10 women who were buying beauty, what would be the percentage for men, very broadly? Would be 1 or 2, or would be more than 1 or 2?
It would vary by categories. For example, in cleansing, that's quite big, but in the more evolved subcategories, there's still a lot of headroom for growth.
Okay, right. And I was looking at some very interesting advertising of yours for clays. Do you have clays in India? I'm not aware, actually. The clay masks. You have the clay. You have?
We do have clay masks. Okay. Yeah, and they are picking up quite a bit.
You said a very interesting thing. You said we look at brands, categories, and franchise cards, which are across pricing, equity, and of course, many other factors, which are additive to the basket of consumers. Do you want to just spend a minute on that, and then we can maybe move forward?
No, definitely. If you look into our portfolio, we have a Garnier, which addresses a very broad market segment. And then we also have a L'Oreal Paris across all the 3 subcategories. And then we play our portfolio in such a way that we are additive between our portfolio and the categories. That's in the consumer product division. And then when you start going luxury for hair care and hair spa, we have a brand called Kerestas, which starts from diagnostics, understanding your hair and giving you the right treatment. Very customized solutions in the salons. You can experience that.
Right.
And then we also get into our luxury, where you have products like Kiehl's, and very recently we have also started with Lancome, which can give you great added benefits to your skin. So we have a gamut of brands across the key categories where we play, and the idea is to serve as many consumers across that in an additive way.
Yeah. So it's actually having and running so many brands and managing them would actually question a lot of the basics of branding. I think a lot of people spend their life. I spent many years building one brand, Maggie. Here you're running 16 brands across your portfolio. So that's quite amazing. Do you want to talk a little bit about Modiface? How do you pronounce it first? Is it Modiface?
Definitely. So, but before, just to your last question, it is very interesting, Sangeeta. We are benefited with some of the best global brands in India.
Right.
Which has taken years of curation to create a very, very strong equity. So it's phenomenal to have a gamut of brands, but we are very, very happy and very, very proud of the kind of equity these brands have. Modiface is an integration which takes us a step into beauty tech. Modiface helps us create more experiences to consumers. Um, we have a lot of virtual try-ons in the beauty world, whether it is looking for the right shade of your lips or a diagnostic test on your skin for the right recommendation. We have tools which you can find on our websites, also on some of our e-com partners, where we leverage Modiface uh, to create these tools where we can give very customized consultations and solutions to the consumers. It's a very, very interesting space, but I think this trend is only going to increase more. Indian consumers are quite demanding on customization and personalization for their skin and hair type.
Yeah.
And consultation is a key step for them to be able to make a wise decision.
Right. Would you mention some of the virtual try-ons? I was very excited by the one where you actually, I went to your site and I looked at all this because I wasn't aware of the virtual try-ons. And it's very interesting aspect of the lipstick color. And, you have a travel, a little gadget with which you can travel, and you put in 3 colors and you, scan in the color that you're wearing, and it will make a combination and give you that color, something like
Definitely.
that.
So
So,
you have products. We use it on our websites, but you also use it in our doors. So if you go to a shopper stop, you will see some of our BAs using it, where we are able to, on your face, on your lips, be able to push different shades.
right,
So you can figure out what shade suits you. We have something similar also in the world of makeup with your foundation color choices.
right.
Uh, we have a gamut of shades designed for Indian women, and you can try it on virtually before you actually make that purchase. We also have a tool that helps you. We call it Skin Genius. It helps you identify the needs of your skin and makes you the right recommendations. And these are the things that we are working and integrating more. Glad that you liked it. If you're not aware of it, we can do a little bit more on telling our consumers about it.
I think so. I wanted to ask you the reverse question, actually. So what is your experience in India on the virtual try-ons? Do you find that Indians are, using it more and more, or not compared to other
Now,
countries?
our numbers show when consumers are getting on it, they are spending a lot of time. They love it. The levels of engagement is very high. And we are working on a plan on how do we integrate that so that it reaches more and more people. And working with our e-commerce partners and integrating this on some of their platforms is one way of doing it.
Right. And you have anything for hair color? Can people put a color on their hair and see how they look?
Yes, we do have a
Okay.
tool that helps you with that as well.
Okay, so that's quite amazing, and actually, maybe you can educate me. Are there many other companies who have virtual try-ons?
In this category, what I would say, at least in the hair care, hair color, skin, and makeup, we are definitely leading the way in creating these beauty tech tools. There are some of our competitors are also doing this. This trend is evolving in India. When we look outside, because with L'Oreal, we have the vision across the world on this, we are seeing this really, really becoming very sizable in some of the markets. So we do think that this is going to become the way forward, and we want to be leading our way as a beauty tech company in this.
Right. And if you remember, Gaurav, we spoke about hair, and I told you that hair is the first sign when women look at beauty, they obviously want their hair in place first. And because of the weather and the grime, it's very difficult to do that. And then you mentioned 2-3 areas which were quite interesting. You mentioned that we have professional care for frizzy hair. We have you mentioned the strengthening hair, a new product from Garnier. Would you like to just spend a minute or two on that?
No, definitely. We look into all the problem areas in hair, be it starting from the scalp. We have some very good products for that. We have anti-frizz products. We also have products around coloration of this to get the right coverage for your grace. So across the hair care problems, we have the right brand and the right products to address this, both in consumer product divisions where you will find these retailed in GT and on e-com, but also, and sometimes more so, in the salons, where we focus a lot on your post-shampoo treatment as well with our mask and the styling solutions.
And then let's switch to channels. And you've experienced a lot of digital and a lot of brick and mortar. And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about how L'Oreal's strategy is towards channels.
I think, again, the common thread on this is consumer. We are seeing a massive overlap across channels on the consumers who've been trying some stuff on e-commerce, but then maybe their second and third purchase is also from their closest grocery channel. Our approach is a very O+O, an omni-channel approach. While we have a significant growth and a great contribution coming from e-commerce, we have our very clearly laid out guardrails in terms of our product portfolio, pricing, and promotions to make sure that inter-channel conflict is limited and consumer is getting the best proposition no matter where they are buying our products from. It is very interesting to see the shift in online commerce in the last 12 months. The number of people now buying products has significantly increased in the last 1 year. Some of the Bain study shows that we now have more than 150 million product transactors, as they call it, on people who are buying, which has grown by 32%. This is still a small subset of people who are on internet. So we have nearly 675 million consumers, and only 140 million out of them are currently buying products. So we see this going to be a rapid growth on this part, and we are very excited at the prospects on online commerce.
How large are salons as a business for you? And you don't, I remember asking you the question, do you have L'Oreal salons? And you said, no, we partner with, we partner with our partners, but the relationship is so deep and so old that sometimes these salons look like L'Oreal Paris salons.
Because you're absolutely right, Sangeeta, and this is not built over a year. There's been decades of partnership with our salon partners, where we have helped create the salon look and feel, premierized it, and also getting the right products for the entire treatment. So it's very, very fulfilling for me to be seeing our partners and our salons succeed, and some have gone and become quite big. And the rewarding experience that a consumer gets in some of these salons is phenomenal. So that's a big part of our business. That's a big part of L'Oreal's equity in India as well, because of having helped hairdressers and salons scale this up by providing quality education. For our professional division, marketing and education are equally important, and our team and the tools that we provide in education helps us take this relationship, make it even stronger.
Right. Gaurav, just switching tracks a little bit. Could you talk to us about the science that goes into some of these products? I read on the Revitalift products. I read there's a hydro something mentioned, which I can't even pronounce. So I was wondering what the role of that is actually.
I think science is a very key pillar for our brands, and the ingredients, be it the salicylic acid that we've been using in some of our products, are key enablers to get the right consumer benefits. We have different brands with different propositions. For example, Garnier is all about green beauty, and we talk about end-to-end sustainability within that. L'Oreal Paris, it leverages a lot of science, and some of our products, as you can see, has great equity on having the right reason to believe. This is one of the trends we are seeing in our consumers. The consumers are talking a lot about the reason to believe behind a product benefit, and that's where we want to be making sure we have the right science to support that for our key brands.
Right. And I think as the world is getting older, the human population wants to stay younger. So there's another huge opportunity there, right? Through skincare, hair care, if you can continue to not look your real biological age. And you mentioned that. You said some of the young people, because of stress, they start looking older. So there's a big role to play for self-care, let me say.
Definitely, there is. We believe in beauty for all ages. So while we have great products, some of our serums and some of our masks are hugely popular in the younger audience. Some of our deeper moisturizing creams are also very popular in slightly more mature audiences. And as we were talking the last day, signs of aging, visible signs of aging, is starting to get younger because of all the stress, challenges, and pollutions. And that's where self-care is very, very important. And sometimes it needs to start sooner than later.
Right. And just to close the channel discussion, you have about 1,500 to 2,000 beauty advisors, you mentioned, right? Who work through salons. Or they also at the some of the large counters. I met one yesterday, actually.
Fantastic. Where was that, Sangeeta?
That was in a mall, which is, I think, less visited right now. It's called it's an Aerocity. It's called the World Mark III. It has a very large central outlet there, which has all the cosmetic brands.
Definitely. So when we look at our consumer product division, we have quite a few beauty advisors who help provide consultation in the stores. You can see this across modern trade, but also some of our GT stores. And when it comes to professional divisions, we partner a lot with the salons on the training and the education of the hairdressers with certification programs. So make sure that there is strong consultation there. One of the key USPs for L'Oreal, and which has served us very well, is being able to give customized consultation in the world of beauty so that the consumers can pick the right products. And this is something that we want to be developing further. And I'm investigating how digital can play a role on democratizing that further. So we are not restricted with only people in the offline stores, but we can actually reach more and more tier 2, tier 3 consumers via our digital presence on this.
And that's amazing. So really adding to employability in the country. Because I just want to mention one of my trips, I was driving through Andhra and I was just amazed to see the number of beauty parlors that had sprung up right across those cities. And it was just young girls looking to be self-employed, earning some money.
No, you're absolutely right. We have a program called Beauty for Better Life, which was established in 2009. And it delivers free and high quality vocational beauty training to women. And so we have years of heritage on actually creating trainings for employability in the world of beauty. I think with the digital ecosystem, probably we can even strengthen that further and find employability for consumers in the world of digital selling, help democratize this more. So we have a very strong commitment to this purpose. We have a good heritage and equity on this, and we have good plans in future.
Amazing. So happy to hear that. Very happy to hear that. Can we switch track and quickly look at, very briefly, the communication strategy? I came across a very interesting idea as I was reading through, something called Insta Festive. Yeah, so I mean, that's an amazing thing. But then I read equally that, instead of being festival-led, the brands would rather be personal occasion-led because there are many more personal occasions than a festival. So I was a little confused between the two. So I thought I'll ask you today, what is the focus?
No, you're right. And as you're seeing in our category, it's becoming a lot more occasion-led purchase versus just a festive purchase. Right. So it's very critical for us to carve out in our communication the occasion. So be it Karwa Chauth, be it the pujas, and how do we make sure that we drive in our communication relevancy, account these occasions, and also potentially in the vernacular that is representative of that occasion. So you would see a lot of activations we have been also doing around the Karwa Chauths and the pujas in Bengal, where women are taking the effort to groom themselves for a particular occasion. Right. That is here to stay, and our future plans will be focused more on occasion-led purchases.
Right. Which brings me to the next part, which is, cookies, as you mentioned, are in their sunset mode. So what is your approach to data, please?
It's a very, very interesting question, Sangeeta, and very, very critical to L'Oreal strategy. We see the value of using data to make sure the experiences and the advertising that we provide to consumers fits to their need. Cookies was always a little bit of a guesswork at best. And now that it is sunsetting, a lot of brands and companies are getting on this bandwagon of trying to get the consumer data. But what is very critical is to understand why we are collecting that consumer data, how we are going to be using it, right? So, and are we collecting it in the most privacy protected way? So we have our internal systems to make sure that every data that is collected has a consent attached to it. We are also looking into making sure we have good rewarding experiences to make sure we have the right data.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we use it in both in our media activations, using the seed audience to create the right set of audiences who would be interested in product, but also learn from it and get good insights based on what kind of preferences our consumers have. So we are looking at it from the verticals of making sure we have the right way to store this data in a privacy protected way. We have the right way to collect this data, and we use it in inciting and media activation. I do see that is going to be the future of marketing. So consumers get served ads that they would like to see instead of they using a lot of blocking ads on digital ads.
Right. So, there's a plethora of sources of data, right? And especially when you have something like beauty tech, which is, if you look at your virtual try-ons, you look at digitally enabling beauty advisors, e-commerce partners and platforms, social commerce. I mean, there's just a plethora, plus sales data. And you have both. You have sales data from digital channels, you have sales data from brick and mortar. And the challenge, and really it's a challenge that would be very nice to hear from you on, is how do you bring all of this together and then, leverage it in the way you just described to get insights?
Sangeeta, you're absolutely right. Around 2012 and 13, I had started hearing this word digital. And digital today is so pervasive that just the word itself has very little connotation. I think the same is going to happen with data. Currently, we are using the word data for a lot of different things. And it is very important to understand, bucket it in different areas because different data can be used for different things. Couple of data example that you said. One was more around business data and understanding our sales data. Via our partners, via distributors, and creating the right ecosystem of tech tools so that we get this data sooner the better and be able to understand our business operations based on that. So we are investing a lot in doing that. The other set of data is consumer data, which can help us both in inciting and also making sure that our ads and our media is optimized better. So this is how we are looking at different set of data doing different jobs. The consumer data, which is of a lot of interest and is now talked about a lot in the industry. We are looking at different sources of where we are getting this data from so that we can bring it all in one place. So we have one view of our consumer before it can be used for inciting or for activations.
So thank you so much for that. And before we wind up, I had some one or two quick pointers I wanted to ask you. One is with respect to the digital approach that you mentioned, and I wanted to quickly ask you whether you're using vernacular, voice, and language. And the other one is just your view on the future potential, and some of which you already mentioned in terms of numbers, but just what is L'Oreal looking to do in the future?
Definitely. I think voice, vernacular, and language is critical to win in India. And even in the urban consumers, we are seeing, as I was just discussing this with our insight teams, while you and I could be talking English here, when we go back to listen to our music, we might be listening to our music in Hindi. So the behavior is very, very intrinsic. And that's why we are making sure that when we are looking into our choice of influencers who are taking our content forward, we also have the same balance in
Right.
terms of tier 1, tier 2 cities, and also in terms of the choice of different languages they are using. So it is very, very critical to have the vernacular diversity in voice and language in your business strategy.
Right. And beauty tends to get younger, I feel. I've just been on the internet following a few things, and I find that it's getting younger and younger. Girls who are just at the end of school want to actually do a lot of makeup. you know, uh,
Y- That's
so
right, Sangeeta, and this is also to do with more awareness from what's happening around the
yeah,
world, which is
right,
coming to teenagers, and that's why there is more keenness on experimenting and taking care, self-care. You're absolutely right, and I
right,
think this trend is only going to be growing further.
right.
In terms of
And
the carry on,
sorry, please, no, after you.
your second question, in terms of how we are looking at the future in L'Oreal,
Yes,
we are quite pivoted to be acquiring more consumers into the gamut of our brands. That's going to be a
right,
very focused strategy for L'Oreal on how do we win more consumers across the categories and across the brands that we play in. And our focus is going to be on penetration, and how do we create the right set of products? How do we create the right set of communication? And how do we create the right set of experiences so that we
right.
can bring more and more consumers into the L'Oreal world?
So, Gaurav, it's been a wonderful journey this afternoon to talk to you. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best as you make L'Oreal India more and more limitless in its approach to the potential in this market.